I'm David Giller. And for those of you who have not participated in one of my virtual, let me turn off the screen share for now. I'll get back into it in a second. For those of you who have not participated in a virtual Salesforce Saturday with me before, basically let me tell you what this is about. It's meant to be open mic, open discussion. There is no formal presentation whatsoever. There is no PowerPoint whatsoever. This is meant to be open roundtable discussion. Imagine all of us are just sitting on the sofa having a conversation, and we could talk about any like Salesforce related topic. It could be about certain Salesforce features or project management or career issues or the Salesforce ecosystem or getting started in the Salesforce community. Really pretty much anything that you want. And I'm not at all going to say I have the answer for everything. I can probably hopefully help guide you in the right direction if I don't know the answer. When it comes to a lot of things, I will be the first to say I have absolutely no clue. You're going to bring up a question that uses the words Apex or Visual Force or Java. Like, yeah, I have absolutely no idea. But hopefully someone else who's participating tonight does have some idea and can help guide you even better than I could. But when it comes to anything declarative, really anything just about the Salesforce ecosystem as a whole and Salesforce products, I'm not at all an expert on every Salesforce product, but particularly on like the core products, absolutely. Anyway, with that being said, you guys are really not meant to be passive on mute. By all means, if there's a lot of background noise, please stay on mute unless you have something to add. But otherwise, this is really meant to be discussion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen where I prepared over here just a suggested list of topics. We can certainly introduce other topics that are not listed here. I was just crafting this as you guys were joining. So there's not a whole lot of thought that went into it, I'll say. And at the same time, anyone want to kick it off with any questions on any topics either that are listed here or that are not listed here? This is all about you guys. It's not about me spewing anything.
Yeah, duplicates. I see it on your list.
Yeah.
When we first, because we started ours from the ground up, basically.
Yep.
And at first we had a lot of duplicates. What is the best practices for that?
So when it comes to duplicates, there are a couple of things that we need to think about. We need to think about, first of all, how to stop duplicates from coming in.
Right.
And we need to think about the duplicates that are already in the system. So you immediately have to sort of break it up into two concepts.
Okay.
So the duplicates that are in the system, we'll get to that in a minute. I'm not at all saying that that's not important, but let's get to that in a minute. First, when it comes to duplicates coming into the system. So now we need to figure out how do records come into the system. The most obvious one is users that are manually typing it. Manually, they're entering in records into the system. However, let me turn off the this so you guys can. So users manually entering records into the system. However, in many organizations, we also have on occasion spreadsheets that are being mass imported. Let's say there's a trade show that happened that relates to our industry. We purchased a list of everyone who either registered the trade show, who attended the trade show, people who stop by our booth. We get a CSV file afterwards. And now we have a spreadsheet that we want to upload into the system. So there are a gazillion different scenarios where we have spreadsheets that are getting uploaded into the system. So that's a second method of records getting into Salesforce where duplicates could come up. The next one, which is most common, is through any type of API or any type of integration. The simplest, most common type of integration is Outlook or Gmail, where there's a sync going on between Outlook and Gmail. So two different people have, let's say, Fred Flintstone. One is listed as Frederick Flintstone. The other one is Fred Flintstone. Maybe different phone numbers, different job titles, different email addresses. And we have duplicates. The next one that is most common is web forms. So there's one or multiple web forms, like a contact us web form, sign up for our newsletter web form, and the same person is filling out more than one form, and then it's coming into the system as a duplicate. There could be several others, but those are the most common ways that data is coming into most systems for most companies, regardless of what industry they're in. So for each one of those, we need to figure out, we need to think from the process itself of how it's getting in, how do we want to handle it? So for example, if someone signs up for a newsletter, let's say we just a lot of times people think, oh, well, if the record exists in the system, let's just block it. Well, if Fred Flintstone is an existing customer, but is not currently subscribed to the newsletter, or for some reason filled out a contact us form or a web form and filled it out, do we truly want it blocked? Like, don't we want to capture that Fred Flintstone, our customer, is actually interested in a different product or has a customer service issue of some kind? Of course we do, right? We don't want to block it. So it actually takes a lot of thought to explore each of those different scenarios. So that's a project by itself.
Okay.
Right. So to sort of take apart each one and to break it up. By the way, the easiest one to rectify is the users manually typing it in, because that's where we can, theoretically, we can just block off saying, yo, the record already exists. Here, go use one of those that are already in the system.
Right. Because I was wondering about that, because like Fred versus Frederick, you know, that's two different names with the same last name, but does Salesforce look at like the same name?
Okay, so as far as the system is concerned, what I'll say is Salesforce has, out of the box, Salesforce has, I think all licenses will include these features. The duplicate management features, which include matching rules and duplicate rules. And so the native out of the box, let me pull it up on my screen and I'm going to show you what the standard matching rules are, and they can be completely customized. Hold on one second, Salesforce. I'll look, actually, I'll let you see what I'm doing as I'm doing it. Share my screen. I'm just doing a Google search here to find the appropriate article. Google is my best friend too. Salesforce contact matching rules. And what I'm looking for is the help article, which actually is the first thing that came up over here. And here's where you're going to see the standard rules that Salesforce has out of the box. So even if you do nothing, just turn on those features, what you're going to see is they're going to have these kinds of equations. So it'll look at things like first name and last name and job title and account, or first name and last name and email, to even see is where Salesforce is looking, is it even a duplicate? And then the question is it an exact match or is it a fuzzy match? So that's where you can go ahead and you can customize, even if you don't like the native standard, you could turn off the standard rules. And in addition, you could also supplement the standard rules with whatever logic you want. So you can specify whether or not you want it to be an exact match or fuzzy match.
Okay.
But even once it finds, let's say, two entries of Fred versus Frederick, the question is which one should survive. Some employees might say, some Salesforce users might say, he introduced himself to me as Frederick, and that's what I've been calling him. I don't know him as Fred or Freddie. And someone else says, I've been calling him Freddie. I went to college with him, right?
Right. So
then the question is what should survive? And that's really a business decision of what should survive the merge, or even if it's manually being done, what should stay in the record. We should not have two first name fields.
Okay. Yeah. Is there a way to utilize a nickname of some sort? Like, you know, say his name is Frederick, but Freddie comes in as a nickname?
Yes. So the way to do this, the most common way of doing this is, and it's funny that you bring it up because that's one of the things that I have somewhere. Here we go, tracking nickname. Yeah, this is very, very common. So the most common way of doing it is just by creating a custom text field. And by placing it anywhere on the lead or contact screen and just call it nickname. And then the question becomes, it's a subjective question, which is when is it appropriate to use it? In other words, when we're doing like a mail merge, when we're sending him an invite to something, when we're sending a season's greetings card, is it more appropriate to use the nickname or is it not? Or are only certain people allowed to use that nickname or not?
Right.
So it sort of opens up a whole other can of worms. But from a Salesforce perspective, the easiest way to do it really is just by having a text field, and putting it in there.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. It's a good one. Okay, so let's talk about. So like when I was first describing it, I was talking about records that are coming in, and then we have the records that are already in the database. So how do we rectify the records that are already in the database? Well, when in Salesforce, when we have the duplicate rules, the matching rules turned on, and we look at a duplicate record, hang on, let's bring up my demo instance of Salesforce that I use for training. Let's go to, I think I have a Fred Flintstone record. I'll duplicate it. So in case you're not familiar with the duplicate rules. So here we have this record of Fred Flintstone. Does he have an email address? Sure, he's got my email address. Let's go ahead and clone it. So we're going to purposely create that cloned record. And you know what, for this one, I'm going to go ahead, I'll call him Freddie to just put some variation in it. And you see right away Salesforce is saying, yo, you're about to create a duplicate. Let's go ahead and purposely ignore it. So then what happens is when anyone is looking at that record, they're automatically going to see this gray bar will automatically come up temporarily. And then actually, I don't know if it disappears. Yeah, it does disappear automatically. I didn't click on it right now. And at the same time, the duplicate notification, which is right over here on the right-hand side of my screen, that will show indicating, oh, looks like we found one potential duplicate. And then when you go here and you click View Duplicates, you check off both records and you see it listed both Fred and Freddie. And then you hit Next and Salesforce will show side by side. So basically it's showing here all of the values that are different between the two records. If I click over here, it's going to show all of the values, even those that are identical.
Okay.
So I then have to choose over here which value I want should survive the merge. So I'm going to go here and I'll select, I'll just click here to select everything on the right. I hit Next. Now Salesforce is sort of warning me, by the way, this can't be undone. Are you sure you want to do? Yes, I'm sure.
Right.
And
so you would just probably add then the Freddie as a nickname into that record?
Yeah, so if I had...
If you wanted that name to survive.
Right. Then I would have a field called nickname and I would pop it into there. Yep.
Okay.
Or alternatively, if you don't want to go the route of bothering with that, another thing you could do is you could simply train your users. I do have it over here. A description to just put it into the description field, which there are pros and cons to that. Because now if you want to use the nickname to merge into like an outbound email,
right?
Not in the description field could have everything, including like his favorite color. So you don't necessarily want it there.
Right.
But if there's only a handful of instances where people care about a nickname and like we're not going to really put a process around it and it doesn't warrant creating a custom field, then you could just encourage the users to just put it into the description field. But there are negatives associated with that too.
So having a set standard of this is how things are supposed to be going into Salesforce is the best way to go. I mean,
yes.
This is how it's got to be done and no other way.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Great question. Thank you.
The best practice is to start off with as few duplicates as possible. You might also need to, activate suffixes and other information. For instance, you could have David Giller Sr., David Giller Jr., David Giller III, and you want to have that just in case, because that could seem like they were duplicates, and yet they're three different people.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
And they can all be associated with the same household. So, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming based on even the reference to the word household, you're working in a nonprofit org?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So what I'll tell you is nonprofits, what I'll say is you're actually quite lucky because I love working with nonprofits. Because it makes the work even more rewarding usually.
Yep.
And nonprofits. And for those of you who are on the call that are not familiar with nonprofits, what nonprofits have that are so special, what I'm going to show you is this. I'm going to log into my, if I can only find it, my nonprofit demo org.
Talking about the nonprofit success pack?
Yeah, some of the features of the nonprofit success
We didn't
pack.
use that. We built it from the ground up.
Oh my God. Okay, wait. Then you definitely have to see what I
Okay.
So I'm pulling it up in another browser window so I can actually.
Yeah, what we got now. We built from the ground up what we got now.
Wow.
And I was told that since we got it so far, there wasn't a good idea to now use the nonprofit success pack.
Okay.
That doesn't mean you can't put one on a DE, a development. A
developer edition, yeah.
Developer edition for yourself to practice and show them maybe they're wrong.
Okay. All right. I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So here, so what you can see on my screen is this is another org, a developer org that I have that's set up to simulate a nonprofit. For those of you who are not familiar with what the nonprofit success pack is all about and the kind of features it has, watch this. I'm going to go to any random contact over here. Fred, my pain in the ass client. So Fred Ford. So what you could see over here is on the surface, it sort of looks like any other instance of Salesforce. There are a couple of objects over here that come out of the box that are
Nice.
totally included. I happen to select a record that doesn't have a whole lot populated. Hang on one second. Let's go here. And I think this record has a little bit more populated. Yeah. So if let's say Renee says, I pick up the phone, let's make believe I'm an employee at the nonprofit. Pick up the phone. Hi, David Giller. How can I help you? The person on the other side says, hi, my name is Renee Gross, and I'm calling about. And as she says that, I immediately go on the top in Salesforce. I search for Renee Gross, and it navigates me over to this particular screen. And then as she's talking, she says, I'm calling about a donation made by my cousin. So I can go here to this object that's part of the Nonprofit Success Pack. It's called relationships. This shows relationships between contacts, between people. Not only in the for-profit version of Salesforce, we have multiple relationships between a person and multiple accounts. Here we're talking about relationships among people. So if she says she's talking about her cousin, well, the only cousins that I know about that we have in our system are Eric and Mary. So I could say, wait, are you talking about Eric or are you talking about Mary? So let's say she says I'm talking about Eric. So all I have to do is click over here into Eric's record, and boom, I'm now in Eric's record. And I can look over here. She said she's calling about a donation that her cousin made. She's calling on his behalf. So I can immediately see the opportunities. Now watch this. Let's go into the opportunities for a minute. So aside from on the contact, actually there was a lot more that I should have showed you on the contact record besides the relationships. So we'll go back there in a minute. And you guys got to keep me honest in case I forgot. Remind me to go back. There's stuff on the contact record as well as the account record I need to show you. So watch this. Even on the opportunity, there's this object that comes, what I'll say, out of the box. It's part of the Nonprofit Success Pack, which is payments. So if someone makes a donation or a pledge for any certain dollar amount, so not only can we track the number of payments that were expected to happen, we can track the payments that were actually made, when those payments actually came in. What was the form of payment? Now let's make believe, I'm gonna go here and let's make believe that she says, oh yeah, he actually wants to do a payment plan on that. Because let's say I look and I say, oh wait, it wasn't paid. We were expecting to get one payment and nothing actually came in. So I'm gonna go here where it says schedule payments. Now watch this. Again, this is all, I did not customize any of this. Let's hope my browser, my internet connection keeps.
So this is all out of the box when it comes to the nonprofit thing?
This is out of the box Nonprofit Success Pack, yes.
Okay.
So let's say over here, you can see I can choose the number of payments. So I'm just gonna leave the default of 12. What is the interval one, like once a week, or let's say every other week, once a month, whatever it might be. So let's choose once a month. And what is the first payment date? So let's go ahead and say, let's make believe the first payment date is gonna be March the 18th. And the payment method is going to be in the form of a check. So we're expected to get a check with this schedule. All I have to do here is click on calculate payments, and immediately Salesforce is going to give me this on the bottom.
Nice.
Yeah. Now I can go ahead and I can make edits to this before I click on this button, create payments. So if I need to tweak it a little bit, if she says, oh wait, the one for July, he's going to skip July, or July's going to happen on the 20th of the month, not the 18th of the month, I can go ahead and I can make that right now. So now I'm going to click on where it says create payments. And what it's going to do is, if it cooperate, oh yeah, it did happen. So now I can see I'm back on the opportunity, and I can see here under the payments, it just changed all of them.
All right, nice.
So this is a lot, I think, really, really cool stuff. Anyone have any questions on what I'm showing you here?
That would be so useful for projects with progress payments on the for-profit side. So I'm a little jealous.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Me too. By the way, a lot of times I'm working with for-profit organizations, and I just wish this was available. Yeah. Now watch this over here. Also for nonprofits, there's all these fields are also coming as part of the Nonprofit Success Pack. You have tribute information. Is it in honor of someone or in memory of someone? So look at this. If I'm in edit mode, I could choose honor or memorial. Who is the honoree contact? What's that person's name? Who should get a notification? Because if it's in memory of someone, we're not sending a notification to the deceased person. We're sending a notification to someone else that this donation was made. So a lot of really, really cool features here. By the way, we have these roll-up fields over here, so we could see the number of payments is supposed to be 12. How much we actually received is 0. So if I go back into one of these payments, let's randomly click into any one of these payments, and let's just mark it as paid. And let's give it a payment date of today. Let's make believe we got it by check, and this was the check number. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And now if I go back to the opportunity, we're going to see, hold on, I got to refresh the browser. So now we're going to see over here that how much we received that amount. This is the remaining balance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to set this up and show them.
So now let me show you this. So I'm going to go back to the contact record, and this is really true for any contact. You have over here, if I scroll down a little bit, now for people who are familiar with the for-profit version of Salesforce, and then suddenly they're in the nonprofit version, they look at these sections that I'm showing you here on my screen, and they're like completely like, oh my God, what is this crap? No, this is really good stuff. This is super important for a nonprofit. So you have over here, you see donation information. These are roll-up summaries of, so you can see first gift date, last gift date, the average gift, the best gift year, the largest gift, the smallest gift, donation totals, the total number of gifts, the total number of gifts in the last N number of days. In other words, for the organization, you can set it up like what that number should be. Soft credit total. So for those of you who are not familiar with it, what a soft credit is, let's say I'm working with the American Heart Association and I'm helping them solicit money. I'm not the one who's actually writing any checks, but I convince 5 of my friends to write checks. I get what's referred to as a soft credit on that. So the soft credit would be represented over here as a roll-up summary back onto my contact record. And here you see household donation information. So let's actually go back to the Renee Gross record because there's a little bit more data filled in over there, and you'll see how it looks a little bit better. So here I can see, let's say for the household, Renee might not have made all of the donations. Some of the donations might have been made by other people in her household. So here I can see while I'm looking at Renee's record, it could be that all of the donations that have been coming in have not been from Renee, have been from her, let's say her husband. But because they're part of the household, like when I'm looking at the numbers up here and Renee has no money, she's looking like she looks as if she never made a donation, I might not be giving her the level of respect that she deserves. But then I look down here and I can see like, whoa, the household has given a lot of money. I need to talk a little bit differently to her.
Right. Okay.
So this is really important information. So now when I go up to the account level, what we're going to see is the same kind of roll-up summaries are at the account level. And by the way, you also have memberships because nonprofits, for those of you who are not familiar with nonprofits, nonprofits usually very often will track more than just donations. So watch this. If I go here under opportunities and I click new opportunity, excuse me, all of these record types are out of the box. You can be tracking a donation. You could be tracking a grant. You could be tracking an in-kind gift. In-kind gift means, like, let's say Home Depot says, look, we're not writing a check, but we're going to give you all of these supplies that you can use. Right. Apple says, we're not going to give you a check. We're going to give you laptops and iPads. That's an in-kind gift. And then we have matching gifts, like when someone works for a corporation, the corporation gives a matching gift based on whatever their employees gave. And then we have memberships, like a YMCA or a museum. They'll have memberships. Right. So a lot of really, really cool stuff. Anyway, all right, what else do you guys want to talk about? Hold on 1 second. Let me go back to the list of topics over here.
I thought we were going to contacts.
David?
Yeah, I showed it to you. Hang on 1 second. Hang on. Let's just, I showed you on the contacts. Hold on, I go here on the contacts.
Ah, gotcha.
The roll-up summaries on the contacts. That's what I was going to show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
David?
Yes.
Going back to duplicates for a quick second.
Yeah.
I have an org that has somehow purchased and loaded a list of contacts twice. So they're the exact same contact listed twice, and they're like 500 of them. How can I get rid of them other than just one by one by one?
Okay, great question. That's
I've enabled everything, and when I pull up a contact, it's, you know, it shows, oh, look, we think there's another one. Do you want to merge them?
Yeah.
But 500 of them, you know, how can I speed that along?
So I'm going to show you now a tool that I completely love when it comes to duplicates. So like what I'll first say out of the box, the Salesforce duplicate management rules, it works really well. But one of the downsides of it is what Gene just described, where if you have a lot of duplicates, honestly, even if you only have 2 duplicates, unless someone proactively goes into one of the duplicates and actually sees that it's a duplicate and actually takes the time to do something about it, because God only knows how many times an employee will be like, yeah, whatever, I just need to track the fact that I made this phone call. And they really don't care about the duplicates. But if we want to, in batch, take care of those duplicates, there are many different tools out there that can help with this. So 2 tools that I'm going to mention. So one tool is called Incycle. So what Incycle does is Incycle lets you, without ever downloading the data into Excel, what Incycle lets you do is identify the duplicates, choose how you want to define what you consider to be a duplicate, and directly within the Incycle user interface, you can actually bulk merge those records. And all of the child records underneath it will get merged into the consolidated record as well. So that's one tool that can help do it. Another tool that I've used quite a bit and I completely love is called Cloud and Go. Cloud and Go, hold on one here. Let's talk about pricing. So just to be transparent, here's the pricing for Incycle and Cloud and Go. What Cloud and Go does is Cloud and Go allows you to, let's talk about the pricing over here also. And by the way, what most organizations need for Cloud and Go is just this version. You don't need the enterprise version, usually. You're usually good with just one user. So like one user gets the Cloud and Go license. And with Cloud and Go, basically what it allows you to do is basically set up the rules of what you want, what you consider to be a duplicate, set up the rules of set up the logic of what you want Cloud and Go to do with those when it finds the duplicates. In other words, you can choose to, let's say, always select the records created by Susan as the master record because we just trust her data versus everyone else on the team. Select the one that was updated most recently. Select the one that was created first. Select the one that has more data in that record. So you can choose between various options, and no selection is perfect, by the way. And then you can automatically, like you can schedule that job that, let's say it should just happen at 1 a.m. every morning to just automatically take care of it. And by the way, that's one method that I think works very well for a lot of organizations where, let's say, we are importing the spreadsheet, or like I talked about before, we have web forms where we know duplicates are coming in, but those duplicates are not going to survive a 24-hour cycle. They're going to get merged by Cloud and Go, or Incycle actually, within that 24-hour cycle by having the automation in place that's going to merge those records.
Do you think I would be able to clean it all up with just a trial? Like the trial version? All I really need to do is go in and wipe out half of them.
You have a 7-day trial with Incycle. Cloud and Go definitely gives you a limit of how many you can. It's the number of records. Hold on, let's see over here. I believe with Cloud and Go, it's a, you know what? Try both. Maybe you can.
Do half and half.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of a learning curve, like with any user interface, of trying to figure out, like, wait, how do I set this up? What do I do at the screen?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah,
Yep. My pleasure.
I couldn't find any tip or trick without going like out into App Exchange or anything other than just pulling up. I mean, I ran a report. I created a report to find out which ones have duplicates. And yeah, it's all of them. I was like, how did you get exact duplicates? And
so typically the most difficult part of the duplicates is not even about which app. It's about what data should survive the merge. Because inevitably what's going to happen, Gene, is if the users usually do not want to be involved in that decision-making process, and they will be very quick to point a finger at whoever took care of the duplicates and say, you eliminated my data. You just got rid. I have no way of retrieving it now. Like I had important information in the description field, and now all it says is his favorite color is blue.
Yeah, well, fortunately, so far, everything I've looked at, they're identical. I mean, it was just,
Good.
there's been nothing added
Good.
into it or anything. So, but okay, I'll try those two. It's just I was trying to speed up the process a little.
Yeah, so these two tools should help dramatically. And
Okay.
at the same time, just from a return on investment perspective, the level of efficiency that you get with these tools, when you consider the price and how quickly they can help speed up the entire process to relieve something that's causing tremendous pain for the organization, it ends up being worth it.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk to her about it, but if this is just a one-time, because they're just getting started and everything, so there's not much information in.
Right.
But, you know, so I've got the rules enabled to prevent it from the future.
Can I ask a question maybe? You're saying that the data that's in there is new right now, and that basically there isn't a lot of data in the accounts. When you imported them, and David, let me know if you think this might be an idea to look at, but when they were imported in the batch, you would have an import date and time. You could potentially build a filter on one of those batches, you know, one of those import times, and then say delete all the records that were imported at this particular time. And that might clean up one set of those records.
And you could put an exception.
It's dangerous because you're deleting out things without actually comparing the two and looking at if there's data in one account or the other account. But if you're really confident that the data is, you're not going to lose any data between one or the other, you might be able to just batch filter those down to the group that you imported in the second batch and then say wipe those out.
Okay.
And if the last modified date was the same as the create date time, no one's touched it.
Yeah,
so you know it's safe.
Yep.
Okay.
However, do we think that there might be related records, like any activities? And it might be that there's nothing because, as you said, it's a brand new instance of Salesforce, but brand new might mean people are starting to use it, logging calls, creating activities.
Exactly. And I haven't been in the org for about 6-7 months. This is just something I touch on once in a while when I have time to, you know, to dig around with it.
Right.
It's not, you know, it's not a real live project. It's just something I said I would work on. So there might have been changes since I've been in there.
If people are actively entering data and updating records, you want to be real careful.
Oh, definitely. Oh, yes. Yep. Yeah. So I know, you know, I've gone through and where David showed where, you know, you can compare the two. So, you know, I was just wondering if they are all the same.
How to do it in batch, yeah. Right, but what the wizard is not going to show you, purposely, the wizard is not going to show you if there are child records that are different. And the reason why it's not showing it to you because the merge process is going to automatically consolidate by bringing all of those related records into the one merged record.
Right.
That's why, like, it doesn't matter. You could have, so let's say we're talking about merging of accounts. This one has 5 contacts. This one has 30 contacts. There are some opportunities here, some opportunities there. When you merge the accounts, all of those contacts, all of those opportunities are completely still intact. They're now all simply mapped to the one consolidated account that was merged.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
But when you go to do the merging, when it says you got the 2 duplicates, says merge this, you're only able to pick one or the other.
Correct. So if it says, let's say, job title or last name, right, you're only allowed to choose one because in the end, there's only one field for job title. So what value should survive? Yes.
Right. Okay. Yep.
David, speaking of duplicates,
Yep.
it would be best practice to
Sorry.
fix hierarchies that are wonky. Because I can't address the duplicate issue if the hierarchy that I'm sending the surviving accounts to is off.
Yeah,
I'm adding that to the list. That's a good one. Account
That's
hierarchy. So let's talk about account hierarchy. First, let's make sure everyone's on the same page of like what it is that we're actually talking about. So I think in here, I think I have it's for Home Depot. I do. Yay. Okay. Let's make sure I didn't delete the parent account that it's associated with. Beautiful. All right, so let's rewind over here. So account hierarchy, for those of you who are not familiar with the term or the functionality in Salesforce, Salesforce has gives us the ability, and this is all completely out of the box, gives us the ability for any account to track what the parent account is. So I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, have seen the lookup field, probably ignored it. In organizations, it's like not even utilized. And that's not a judgment call, it's just reality. And in many organizations, it's not utilized. And it's simply a lookup field called parent account. And what that does is it allows any organization to track, to basically build an account hierarchy. And the account hierarchy, it's really, it's subjective. It's really up to the organization to define how should we structure the account hierarchy. I typically recommend to do it first by by company division, then by location if that's appropriate. So for example, if let's say we're talking about Sony, forget here that I have Home Depot on the screen. Let's say we're talking about Sony. And under Sony, there might be Sony Global, there might be Sony Electronics, Sony Laptop, Sony Entertainment, Sony Movies. So there could be many, many different divisions of Sony. Each one are treated legally and business-wise, they're treated as separate corporations that they happen to be related to each other. So I would build those as separate accounts. All of those accounts roll up to the parent account of Sony, let's say Sony International or Sony Global. And for each, let's say for Sony Electronics, for Sony Movies, for Sony Entertainment, the parent account would be Sony Sony Global, Sony International, whatever the naming convention would be. Under, let's say, Sony Entertainment, if they have different headquarters or different locations, one in New York, one in California, one in Texas, then I would make those as accounts as well. Those accounts, I would use it like a naming conventions like Sony Entertainment dash, let's say New York, Sony Entertainment dash Los Angeles, California, and then the parent account would be Sony Entertainment. And by doing that, when you're looking at any account, so now let's go back to the example that I have on my screen, where I have Home Depot for Lakewood, New Jersey, and I could see over here the parent account is written as Home Depot, but if I want to see the relationship of the whole org hierarchy, similar to like an org hierarchy of people within an organization that an HR team would manage, I can simply click on this tiny little icon. This is native out of the box Salesforce functionality. Tiny icon, it says account hierarchy, simply click on it, and it's going to show me this is the account record that I'm currently looking at. And then it rolls up to this one, but here are the sibling accounts that are at the same level. If I had more child accounts underneath it, those would appear here as well. And I can navigate around and choose which account I want to drill into. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Karen, now I forgot your question. I'm sorry.
In our example, we'll take Nestle. Nestle, you have Nestle Global, which is in Switzerland, and then you have Nestle USA headquarters, which is in Virginia, I think. But
Right.
then divisions. My issue is that I have people who don't read or doing it too fast, and I have like a Milwaukee plant listed under Nestle Global instead of Nestle USA.
So I think what we're saying is that the account hierarchy is screwed up. It's not so much at the contact level of duplicates. It's the account hierarchy is messed up, right?
Yes, it's in the wrong place. Please don't tell me I have to change those individually because I'll cry.
What I would do is this. If I were in that situation, I would build a report. I'm going to try to make your life easy here. I'm trying to remember if the native, I don't think the native record type is going to show me IDs. Let's see. Yep. Okay, this is going to be good. We're going to have fun here. Okay, so watch this. So all accounts, let's remove the filters here. So this is the native record type, report type for just accounts. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to say, only show me those accounts that do in fact have a parent account populated. Because that's probably what you want to take care of. You want to take, your issue is not so much those accounts that have no parent account. It's more that they have a parent account, but it's completely wrong.
Yes.
Okay. So what I would do here is I would say parent account, only show me those where the parent account is not equal to blank. That's the only filter I need in this report. Right? And then I'm going to go here to build the report, and I'm going to, let's get rid of, maybe we'll keep the account owner because maybe we want to tell them, dude, I'm changing this on your behalf and this is why. So I'm going to go here and let's get rid of all these other columns. And now let's go ahead and include the parent account. And maybe we want to look at it this way to see the grouping, and the account owner can come next. And now let's go ahead and pull in some IDs. So we want the parent account ID and we want the regular record. Why is it not coming? The regular record account ID. And let's go ahead and parent accounts. So by creating this report, what I'm looking at on the left-hand side are all of the parent accounts, and on the to the right of it, I can see all of the child accounts that are affiliated with it. With me so far?
Yes.
Okay. So now the reason why I brought in those account IDs on the right-hand side is because what I would do at this point, I would just go ahead and I would export this right here, export it into Excel, and so I would clean it up in Excel, and then just re-import it back into Salesforce to update the accounts with the new parent account ID. This way you don't have to manually go in and do anything. So you could use data loader or dataloader.io, which I love, by the way, for those of you who are not familiar with it. I would use either one of those to just update those account records.
I knew I loved you for a reason.
I didn't hear you.
I knew I loved you for a reason. Can you scroll to the left?
I'm so glad I was able to help.
Yes, this is a big help.
Awesome. Awesome. All right.
Get out of there yet.
ID.
Okay. Who else has any topic you want to talk about?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So
This is why I love these things. Go ahead.
I'm working with a nonprofit client who is actually grandfathered in as a nonprofit because it's a full-blown counseling session or counseling center. So think of your normal counseling center with 20 counselors and some office staff, but they are a nonprofit. But here's the tricky part. So they have clients that are children and adults. And on top of that, they have clients where the woman is seen by one counselor, the husband's seen by a second counselor, and they're seen together as a couple with a third counselor. They might also have a kid seeing another counselor. So their data that's in their current system comes out showing the main contact as the client, whether it's a child, woman, husband, whatever.
Each one of them are clients.
Pardon?
Each one of those people are clients.
Yeah, every single one is. And so they all need to be affiliate, have relationships and things like that. But where it really gets confusing is, do you keep a standard structure by having husband, wife, child, or do you just always make the child the client and that's it, and everyone else is contact 2, 3, 4? And how many households do you end up with?
Okay.
Yeah.
Track all this?
This is a very, very common issue. So what I'm hearing between the lines, I'm about to bring up Lucid Chart because I'm going to start drawing.
Thank you.
No worries. Hang on one second. Blank document. Okay. So what I'm hearing between the lines is that what you've got right now is
A blank slate?
Yeah, no. What kind of object are you guys using to track? Where is it that you're tracking, like who the primary client is and who the secondary contacts are?
Well, I was going to use the standard model of having a household, right? With all different people being related to the household and to each other.
Oh,
But
so wait, so the Salesforce instance is not up yet? Is that what I'm hearing?
yeah, we're starting.
Oh, okay, good,
We're bringing in data.
good.
Yes.
I'm thrilled to hear that, because I was going to go in a direction I was understanding that you're already using Salesforce. And so I was making assumptions about how it's already structured. Okay, good. So this is gonna be fun. You ready?
Awesome. Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So what we're gonna do is this. I'm gonna go here and contact, and let's draw a line around this, and let's make the font a little bit bigger over here. So as you know, in Salesforce, we have the contact object. And a contact should always be a person, a human being, someone who's living and breathing. Okay?
Right.
On the contact record, you should never, ever, ever have something that looks like parent one first name, parent two
Right.
second name. Like, no, never. Primary care physician, no, it should not be first name or full name with a text box. No.
It's always the household.
It should
Always the household, right?
Well,
right?
we didn't get to the household yet. So every
Okay.
human being in the database should either be a contact, or if you're using leads in the organization, then let's go ahead and let's draw this box over here, and it would be leads. So every human being should really be either a contact or a lead. In your instance, I'm assuming we're talking about all contacts. So, okay, so let's go here and let's simulate that we have the multiple, let's make believe it's two parents and a child. I mean,
Great.
come up with all kinds of other scenarios. All of those contacts, just like in any other instance of Salesforce, all of those contacts roll up to an account. So let's go here and start drawing these lines of connecting all of these people to that same one account. Now, in the nonprofit success pack, the account record type is a household. So
Right.
it's all it is it's an account. It's still an account. So just like for any business, just like if we were tracking, let's say, Home Depot or Citibank, and we're tracking multiple employees at Citibank, those are contacts. Each person, each human being is a separate contact. They all roll up to an account.
Right.
That account happens to be the household. So let's go here and household/account. We're good so far?
I'm good so far. I'm a certified admin, just so you know that, but I think this is really helpful for everybody else. So please keep going at that level, because it's going to make sure I'm not going off track anywhere.
Okay.
And it's very helpful to me.
So now the question becomes, when we need to keep track of the counseling. So you could use one of many different objects for this. In theory, it could be a case object, it could be the opportunity object, it could be a custom object. Doesn't necessarily matter.
Okay.
When I say it doesn't necessarily matter, what I mean is, depending on the business requirements, depending on what it is that you're looking to track, my recommendation is that you use one of those objects, because those objects will give you lots of out-of-the-box standard features that you're going to find incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I plan to use cases for literally case notes and session notes and things like
Totally
that.
cool. Yes.
Okay.
And so it's at the case level that you would track. So here I'm going to put another box here for cases. So it's at the case level that you would track. So the question is, with what level of granularity? It's sort of like, these are the services that we are providing, the counseling services that we are providing for one individual, because the case has basically a primary contact. So if, let's say, let's go over here and draw some more lines. So if, let's say, we have, it doesn't matter which household member is getting services. Why does that line go so wacky? Let's do that. So this one particular contact is the primary contact for a particular case, but the other contacts within the same household all have their own one or multiple cases as well. So this way, for each contact, you could see who is the primary for each case, you can see who is the primary contact or the multiple contacts associated to this case. And
Can you have multiple, I'm sorry, can you have multiple contacts associated with one case?
Yes, so that's actually what I was about. Thank you for asking. That's
Okay,
actually
good.
what I was about to show you. So let's go here. We're in my demo org over here, so none of the data is real. So if we have over here we're looking at the cases, and we have the contact name. So this is basically the primary contact. We also have this feature just like in opportunities for contact roles.
Okay.
And we can specify what role they play as it relates to this case. So let's go here and let's add someone. So I'm just going to randomly choose any contact. Let's look for Fred Flintstone and add him to this case. We could choose what role he has. So, and you can customize what roles are available, what roles are appropriate. And now let's go ahead and add, let's add George Clooney. Let's give him a role. And now not only when anyone is looking at the case, we can see who are the other external people that need to be involved. We also, it goes full circle. So if I look at the Fred Flintstone record, I could see under cases that this person is involved in the following case.
Okay. Okay.
Now, the other thing that you have, which you didn't necessarily talk about, but it might be it might be part of the business requirements, where you have case teams. The case team will indicate the internal people that you have inside the organization that are working on this case. So even though you might have one person that's listed as the case owner, you might have different people that play different roles as it relates to resolving like the kind of counseling that's being provided to this person. So if I go here where it says, if I go here where it says add member, it's only going to allow, oh, I didn't finish setting it up in this org, never mind. So it's only going to allow me to select users as part of the case team. And this is just like on opportunities.
So back to the household model, they make you, or they want you to select a primary contact for the household.
Right.
So back to, how do you name, because I was, in other orgs I've worked with, we've set up the household, like my last name is Fry, so it's a Fry household, and in parentheses, Christopher and Roxanne. So that all households are named like that. But that's a standard regular old household without a children who's a client and all of that. So who would you make the main contact of the household? It seems weird to have a child, but sorry, I'm babysitting my in-laws' dog.
Don't worry about it. I have a dog also, I know what it's like.
Okay, I'm gonna try to shut the door.
It's all good. So what I would do is, first of all, I would not get very caught up on who the primary contact is at the household. I would think of that in terms of, in the most simple, basic English terms, who is the primary person that the nonprofit is interacting with within that household, even if it's okay, yes, it's the child that's getting the services. Maybe, I mean, the child might be 16, 17, 18 years old. Maybe the child truly is the only person within the household that we're actually interacting with. Then it's okay to have the child as the primary. But if it's, let's say, the mom or the dad or the grandparent that's living with them also, that is the primary person that we are interacting with to provide the counseling services. That's okay too. Like, I would not get caught up on that, because when it comes to the actual case of who's getting counseling services, we know who that primary contact is. And at the same time, let's take it a step further. You have a use case where, for whatever reason, that child that's getting services has missed the last 3 weeks. And we need to follow up with someone like, what the heck is going on? The child is not responding. The primary contact in the household is a valuable indicator of who should we be reaching out to. Who's the first person that we should be reaching out to?
Yeah. Do you think that I should possibly have an account with just the child contact under it, and another account, household, with the mom and dad or the adults?
Why? Like, what's the benefit of that?
Because otherwise the main contact, all the phone number is just for here's where they're getting goofed up. They have a kid's name and a mom's cell phone and the dad's email. So
that's exactly why it's so important to have them. That's exactly why I started with a different contact. The mom has her contact record, the dad has his contact record, the child has their contact record. Okay, so one last question. I think this is it, and then I'll mute me and my dog. But so again, I hadn't really thought of cases this in depth. So if a counselor is seeing the husband and wife together, that could have a case type, I guess a case record type of couples counseling. They could both be connected with the cases under there, and they'd each have a case contact role of client or something like that. Would that do it? Even in that scenario, I would keep the native functionality. I mean, you could, in theory, you could have your own record type, but I would not change, like even the functionality that I showed you here. I have too many tabs open. It's making me crazy, making me crazy. So I would not change anything here, because even in that scenario, let's put it this way. I know when my wife and I, whether we're talking about a party planner, whether we're talking about having floors redone, like whatever it is, it's usually one of us, usually my wife, who's the primary contact that is interacting with that organization, that company, whatever services it is, even though I'm another approved contact for whatever is being done. So I would still over here, like for the primary contact, I would still have who is the primary individual that we are usually most commonly interacting with. And over here under contact roles, I would specify, I would come up with some naming convention to specify under the role of who are the people that are actually receiving services beyond this person listed here.
Yeah. So
And
I think that's where
to
they legally and by HIPAA have to keep it all straight, such as,
it still would be.
yeah, which the cases for the woman, the
HIPAA.
cases for the man, and the cases for the couple, where technically they're supposed to be on equal ground, but we can just pick one of them as the primary.
It's a primary. When we talk about primary does not mean they're more important. They mean when it comes to
It's a good point.
when it comes to communicating about any issue on this initiative that's represented on the screen, here's the person that we're reaching out to first. That's all, just first. It doesn't mean that's the exclusive person we may reach out to.
Okay.
So very simple.
Gotcha. That makes a lot more sense. A lot of times I think primary too, like you are the primary, you're the leader, you're the most important
No,
one.
they're not sitting on a throne. They are simply first in line. They're first in line to receive the phone call, the notification, the email. But if they don't respond, that other person is getting that notification, the communication very quickly after.
Great. Well, thank you. I've done a lot of nonprofit setups, but this one just really threw me on. I think the HIPAA makes me a little nervous, and yeah, the data coming in is well, the data coming out of their current system is just a mess because they just merged.
And that's probably the cause for even thinking of it in the way that you are, because of the way the data was architected before. And by the way, I've seen this so many times where like it's usually a nonprofit that wants to migrate data into Salesforce, or they're already in Salesforce, and I look at the contact on the contact in the first name field, it will say Fred and Wilma, and the last name is Flintstone, and the email address will say something like bubbles@gmail.com. I'm like, whose email address is this? They're like, we don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly what.
Can you separate out the records? Does Salesforce have a way of automatically separating them out to create two contacts? Like, no.
Not if you put them in together. Yeah. So that's what I really told the client on Friday, just how much time we need to invest now to get the data cleaned up, get the data in the right format, into the template, so that when we bring it in, it's going to work. So thank you. That helped. I got all kinds of sticky notes. Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Yep. All good. All right. Who else? What else do you want to talk about?
Hey, David.
Hello.
Hi, this is Veena. So I have a quick question. So I have recently started working as a Salesforce admin. So it might be a silly question, but I'm going to ask.
No such thing as a silly question. Silly configuration issues, but not a silly question.
Okay, so we have users, but most of the users missing the company name. Few of the users have the company, but a few other don't have.
Hold on, the users or contacts? Like the Salesforce users or the people in the database as contacts?
Salesforce users. It's most of them were internal users. So we have both internal and external. So we want to give company name only for the internal users, just to identify, because I have a situation where I am using that rule where the company name is it's not null, such kind. So in that scenario, I want to mass update or the user company name. So how do I do that? Can I do that with because I do know maybe I'm using data import wizard, we can do it for objects. I don't know if we can do it with the users.
Yes, users is tracked as an object as well. How many users do you have?
It's very less, around 40.
Okay, so what I'll tell you is this, watch this. So if I go to reports, and I look to create a report on users. Again, let's just confirm that the user ID is there. Yep, user ID is available. So let's put a filter to say, I don't have that many users in this demo org, but let's go here and say company. You know what? Maybe you want to see all companies, especially if it's only 40. I would just do all of them, whether they're populated or not, because you want to make sure that even those that are populated, that it's correct. So what I would do is I would put company name, maybe even group it by company name. So I'm going to take company name, drag it all the way to the top.
Okay.
So I'm dragging it by the company name, and you can see in mine, they are blank, at least in the preview. So let's go over here and let's get rid of all of these other details that we really don't care about. And let's go ahead and save and run this report. Users by company name. So this is your reports. On the right-hand side, we have the user ID. So what I would do here is similar to what I described earlier. I would simply export this, pull it into Excel. All of those where the company name is blank, I would just update it in Excel. And then you can absolutely use Data Loader to simply do a batch update of the users, and the lookup is going to be based on the match is going to be based on the user ID. And you will then update the company name.
Okay, so yeah, so we have, for example, I think we have more than 100 users where few of them were external users. So I want to filter it by like, if the user's license is Salesforce, it's an internal user. If it's a community user, we're gonna say it as an external user. So I can filter that as well, right?
So that's a good question. I don't think,
Because I don't want to update the company name for all the users.
I don't, no. So you don't have to update it for all of them. You could pull a report showing all of them, but then it's those that are blank. The question is, what attribute on the user record can you actually, let's go back into the, give me 1 second over here. And let's go back and see if the fields that are available.
I think it's type.
It's under type? User
I think
type?
so. It'll say Salesforce, Chatter, or Community, if I remember.
Let's see. Guest standard, that might be it.
Yeah, that's it, because you have standard, you have Chatter, you have Community.
There you go.
System Administrator.
Vina, that'll do it for you.
So
you can either simply display it so you can clean up everyone at the same time, or if you want to filter on it, you only want to see those that are guest users, is what I'm hearing.
Okay.
Now, you want to exclude the guest users.
Okay.
So either way, you have the ability right here.
Why are you going recommending Data Loader versus Data Import Wizard to do an upsert?
Because Data Import Wizard, I don't believe that you can, first of all, I don't believe that you can do, you can update users with the wizard.
No, you're right.
Okay. Also, I generally
can't do what with the wizard?
Update users. You can update contacts and leads.
Oh, okay.
Leads, accounts, not opportunities.
Also, as an admin, once you start getting involved in batch updating or batch creating records of any kind, it's like you quickly graduate off of Data Import Wizard and start using other tools. But the Data Import Wizard is still immensely helpful for batch importing contacts and accounts, specifically when they're in one consolidated spreadsheet. In other words, the spreadsheet has a column for like first name, a column for last name, and then a column for company name, versus having separated out separate tables.
Right. I thought that the data wizard was only used for so many people, and the data loader, but you're talking users, not actual contacts.
Well, you can't use it for users, but for contacts and leads, if you have less than 50,000 that you're needing to load, it'll work.
The wizard.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So, by the way, when it comes to So I was going to look up the limitations of Data Import Wizard, which are certainly not top of mind for me.
50,000 records at a time, right there. First
yeah, that's what I thought it was. I thought I heard something or saw something about that.
Yeah.
It said if you had less than this many, you should use Data Import Wizard instead of the data loader.
But for those of you who are not familiar with it, I completely love this tool. Completely love it. So, and depending on how much you need to update, you could probably get away with the free version if you're only looking to update up to 10,000 records per month. So basically, this is similar, but ironic. I've been using dataloader.io for a long time. This is a product of MuleSoft, which recently was bought by Salesforce. So this is now technically a Salesforce product. I'm curious to see how this evolves. But this is not so different from Data Loader, the desktop client application that you can use. This is simply web-based. And one of the beautiful things about dataloader.io is that you can also leverage files stored in the cloud, like in Box.com, Dropbox kind of services to pull your data from. You can also use FTP. So if, let's say, you have some other system or some other team that is putting spreadsheets via FTP to some destination, dataloader.io not only can pull those files from that FTP site, but you can also set it on automation. That it should do it, let's say, once a day, once a week, once a month, whatever it is. So a lot of reasons why I completely love dataloader.io, but for many, many instances, it's overkill. But at the same time, like once you're using a certain tool and okay, it might be overkill, but since I'm used to using it, like used to logging in and the navigation of it, it's not a big deal to use it to just update 10 records. So
right.
That's my take on
So you can use Data Loader for any amount of records. I mean, well, up to 10,000 for that free version.
Yes.
But then you would do that instead of the Data Wizard?
I would only use, me personally, I would only use Data Wizard when I have a spreadsheet that contains the contact information as well as the account that they should be associated with. Because the Data Import Wizard is the only way of getting all of that data into Salesforce into two different objects, contacts and accounts, in one fell swoop. Because you're pulling the street address, the city, state, zip code, etc., and it's putting it automatically into both the contact as well as the account record.
Right, but we've had a lot of issues with trying to do that. It's like, it's really touchy. It wants exactly what it wants.
Oh, yeah. The truth is, any system will,
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's really particular, that Data Wizard thing is.
Yeah. Robert, to answer your question, I see in the chat about Marketing Cloud. So I'll tell you, Marketing Cloud, more and more is available on Trailhead to learn Marketing Cloud. I've also done not one, but several classes on Marketing Cloud. There is definitely a learning curve with Marketing Cloud. It's quite a bit to learn. Everything about it is quite different from the rest of Salesforce. So be patient about it is what I'll say.
I've been doing this for a few years, and it seems it's very apparent that Marketing Cloud was a bunch of different products that were kind of beat into submission.
Yeah.
And because you can't get a trial org.
You know what? You're right. You can't get a trial org, but I believe, and I have not done this myself, especially because I have an instance of Marketing Cloud. I believe that through Trailhead, you can get a learning,
It's a simulator.
Oh, that's what
Oh, is it?
It's a simulator. I'd never seen it until I went through these trails. It's pretty amazing.
I'll have to try that. I didn't know that because I've done quite a few of the trails, but I've not seen the simulator yet. Thank you.
Yeah. And I would also just keep checking back. Don't be, let's say you get through all of the content that's on Trailhead for Marketing Cloud, and then you feel like you're done, you've exhausted everything. I would still keep checking back to look if more content was created later.
Yeah. The only experience I have is bits and pieces of clients who have it, if they need something small done.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What else do you guys want to talk about?
Hey David, this is Veena again. I have one more
Yes.
question about
Sure.
about the static resource. So I am not much familiar about that, but I do know like if we want to reference it in somewhere, we upload the static resource file. So I have come across a situation where we have email templates, but their font size and font color were not as expected. So what I was doing is I have created a .css file with my font size and font family, and then I uploaded it as a static resource.
Are we talking about Marketing Cloud, or are we talking about just regular?
This is general, in general.
Okay.
So my question is, can we reference a static resource in a HTML file? Because I have done a lot of research and I have seen most of them were referencing it in the visual force, but not in an HTML file. Because I tried to use it by using like $resource dot my CSS file, and it's giving the HTML error. Some fields were not good or not. So can we reference it in HTML?
Yeah. So not that I'm familiar with, but
Mhm.
someone else on the call might know something different on that topic
Okay.
that I don't know. Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
I'm trying to look it up now. I think you can reference it in LWC through an import, but I'm not sure of that because I don't do a whole lot of the CSS. We have a guy for that. So I'm looking to see how it's imported. I think you can import it in the Lightning Web Components. Let me see if I can find a link.
Okay, yeah, I have done a lot of research and I saw most of them were using Visual Force like Apex Core, and then they were doing that, but not directly into the HTML.
Yeah, I don't know if it's possible. So while Robert looks that up, and you can feel free to interject or include it directly in the chat, whatever you like.
Can we talk about tools for admins?
Yes. What do you want to talk about?
I want to know what are the best practices when it comes to admins and how they delegate roles and users. So I'm an admin, and then I have another person who's an admin, but everybody else is like a standard user.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay. And the challenge is what?
That the standard user can't see certain things, like is there, okay, so we have a volunteer director, and there's certain things that she doesn't have the ability to see that I think she should as a standard user. Is there somewhere in Salesforce that you can specify exactly the user and what they're allowed to fully see?
So the answer is yes, in a lot of cases.
All right.
So the question, this goes deeper to I often tell people that when it comes to Salesforce and controlling who sees what, don't think of it like a light switch. It's either standard user versus admin.
Right.
Instead, think of it like layers of an onion. It's that complex.
Oh, okay.
So it can be as granular as when looking at the contact record of Fred Flintstone, she can't see the favorite flavor of ice cream. Or it could be that she can't see that Fred Flintstone contact record at all.
Right.
Or it could be that she can't see the contact. She could see she could see everything else in Salesforce, but she can't see contacts, any contact anywhere.
Right.
So
that has actually happened because I tend to be the account owner, and some records people can't see because I am the account owner, and I didn't understand that either. So
okay, so what I'll tell you is this: the best way to wrap your head around this is hang on one second. YouTube Who Sees What series. Hang on, I'm going to show it to you, and I'm going to share you the URL. Here we go. View the full playlist. So this playlist, I'm going to cut and paste this.
Cool. I will cut and paste it.
So, and by the way, the reason why it's broken up into so many videos, because let's start over here on the bottom. Although this is really just like an intro. Org-wide defaults. In other words, across the entire org, this could be things like logging in in certain hours, logging in via IP address. So you can control at that massive grand level. You can control, whoops, I didn't mean to actually click on that. You can control access based on the role that someone has. So this has nothing to do with admin versus standard user. Role as in volunteer director versus volunteer manager versus intern for volunteers. So
right now we got 10 users and we're planning on putting more in. I want to know this before I do that.
Yeah, so you need to wrap your head around this. So this is field level security. So this is like the example I gave you before, where a person can see, maybe they could see, they could see the record of Fred Flintstone, but they can't see the field called, let's say, phone number or favorite flavor of ice cream. Or on the flip side, they can see it, but it's read only for them. They can't edit it, but others can edit it. So that's field level security.
Okay.
And then there's sharing rules where based on the hierarchy, the roles of who is permitted to see what, you can then allow the users to create exceptions by sharing it with others. So someone in the organization could say, this particular record of Fred Flintstone, I want to share it with the following person. And then we have record types where, let's say, someone can see only the records for adults, but not for anyone under the age of 18. Those would be record types. Or they could see only the accounts that are households. They can't see any corporate accounts at all. And then we have permission sets. Permission sets basically allow you to provide exceptions to pretty much anything in Salesforce. And then object access, I'm jumping to the top. Object access, which means that they can't see the entire tab. They can't see any record of that kind whatsoever in Salesforce. They can't even see the context tab anywhere. And thank you, James, for putting the, that's the trailhead link, which is, I'll pull it up on my screen so everyone can also see it at the same time.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, so this is the corresponding trailhead for the exact same content. I don't think those videos are embedded within any of these trails. I'm just scrolling down to see. No, the video's not there, which is why I always feel the need when this topic comes up to give people both the link to the trailhead as well as the playlist.
Good.
Comes up all the time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So having them both there ready it'll help you learn it better.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
My pleasure. All right, what else?
Hi, is anyone using the inbox add-in for Outlook or for Gmail? And if so, have you found any possible way to report on activities like email sent and just overall rep usage? I'm having a really hard time with that.
So that's a good question. I personally have not used Inbox. So I guess I'm going to flip the question either to you, Chrissy, or to anyone else who is familiar with Inbox. Does the data get stored in Salesforce as regular activities the same way as if you're sending an email natively out of Salesforce? Because that I don't know.
It shows up on a record, like email the contact. When you log the email in Outlook, it shows up on the contact just like you sent it through Salesforce. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. So if that's the case, so is it that you're looking just to see which users are leveraging Inbox or which users are actually sending emails?
Both, either. Or the only thing I can see right now is who's logging in to Inbox.
Okay, so I don't know to what extent it's possible to track the usage of the app Inbox, but in terms of pulling a report of pulling a report of users that are sending emails, basically it would be as simple as creating a report that basically you want to see. It's really just activities in it. You want to see the activities. It's basically a report of activities where you would filter the activities by type. I don't have a custom one called, I have actually activities, users with activities. What I would do is I would just pull a report of activities, and I would filter those activities to only show the activities that are emails. And then I would group it based on the users. So that will show you who's sending emails that would not necessarily indicate if the emails were sent via the inbox app or natively within the Salesforce screens.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a way to differentiate between the two.
Do
Just
you
so
want to see whether or not it's worth keeping the app? Is that it?
exactly, because I can
Okay.
see from the login in perspective that people are using it, but I can't say, oh, well, this person sent 22 emails that she logged to Salesforce and this person sent 2. It's really, really strange.
Hold on. I think we might have it right here. Yep. I'm going to send you a link. Look at that. Love Google. Hold on. I'm cutting and pasting this into the chat. So what I'm seeing over here is, I'm trying to make this bigger. In Lightning Setup, go to Einstein Sales, Inbox, Users, and Licenses to see an overview of the status connected accounts, etc. So that'll see you who actually set it up versus those that were given licenses and they are not even properly set up. And then over here, it looks like under connected apps, OAuth usage, you can find the Inbox app. And that's where you can see the, if you click on the user account link, it's going to show you additional usage information about each user.
Thank you.
Yep, my pleasure. We could also keep hunting around on Google to see if there are any other thoughts that anyone had on that. Any other questions that anyone else wants to talk about while I continue looking up this one, Inbox Salesforce usage report.
And wanted to see if anybody else is having redirect issues with Salesforce. We have a separate CPQ system, and I'm thinking it's the CPQ system because they have to access it via Salesforce, and our CPQ team is saying, no, it can't be, because, you know, archaic legacy systems are always perfect. And I was just wondering if other people are having redirect errors when they're in Salesforce, using whatever browser, Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, whichever.
So what I'm hearing is that they're getting redirected, like every time they try to navigate around in Salesforce, they're getting redirected.
No, ironically, it's every time they try to access the quote in the CPQ system through Salesforce.
So they're in the CPQ, it's a custom homegrown CPQ system?
I don't think it's totally custom. I'd probably say majority of it is.
Okay.
And just as, who was doing their updates? It was about a month and a half ago. Was it Google that did updates? And once that ended is when this started popping up more often. Like now it's daily. And CPQ team is saying, oh no, it's Salesforce. And it's like, no, because they can access everything else in Salesforce. Is when they try to edit a quote where Salesforce takes you to the CPQ system is when we're getting the redirect errors.
I'm wondering if the mechanism by which the CPQ system is providing that URL, if it's something quirky about that. It might even be the domain. If you may or may not have a custom domain on there. If you don't have a custom domain, that might be the issue.
But to my knowledge, it hasn't been changed at all. It hasn't been touched.
I understand.
And this has been.
It's possible that Salesforce moved the organization from one server to another. So if the URL, see here, like by me, the URL says Brainy8 nonprofit demo-dev.ed.
Mm-hmm.
Or on this one, it says, where am I? No, I think I closed the other one. Here, this one says Brainy8 demo.dev.ed. So whether or not it says that versus something like NA6.
Our org had issues where they say there was possible issues that were noted with the latest version of Google Chrome. So there could be something to that too.
Yes, because didn't those issues come out about, I want to say about a month and a half ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be it too. It could be a couple of things that are going on.
Yeah, unfortunately, too many variables.
So one of the reasons why Salesforce encourages every company to have a custom domain is to avoid the issues in case Salesforce needs to move the company's instance from one server to another, that the URLs are not going to break. So Salesforce would automatically forward you over to the appropriate domain, the appropriate server, I should say.
I'm trying to think of how do I pose this question so they know what I'm talking about.
By the way, just jumping back real quick to the to inbox reporting of emails, I was completely wrong. It looks like this idea has been posted by many people that to be able to pull reports on emails sent through Salesforce inbox is not doable. That you can't even pull a report.
Yeah, I think I'm somewhere down in that list saying, why is this not here?
Yeah.
I think it's 2 separate databases.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a separate system.
But it's a really, really great tool. Highly recommend it, even with some little quirky stuff that happens.
Yeah. I hear you. Karen, we can go back to your issue. I didn't mean to jump off of it.
No, I'm just trying to figure out the right question to ask. This team is special.
Special. Okay, so the first thing I would add, do you have access to their org?
No.
Okay.
No, I need NSA clearance.
Okay, so the first thing to find out whether or not they have a custom domain, basically I would ask them, once they're logged into Salesforce, if they could just cut and paste the URL or give you a screenshot only showing the URL. You don't need to see anything else.
Okay. Now,
So,
you want that before they click to go to the quote? Or after?
no, let's make believe they have nothing to do with their CPQ system. They just want to log into Salesforce to look at anything.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's say they just go to the home page, and you're on the screenshot. You could be more specific, like because it sounds like there's some security concerns. You could tell them like just go to the home page, and you can crop out everything that's any data whatsoever. All you want to see is the URL, or they could just cut and paste the URL itself into an email.
We do not work for a government entity. It is strictly control issues that they need to get over. I
hear you loud and clear.
Give me
Yeah.
the URL.
Yeah. So look, in those situations, I would sort of turn to the client, like imagine a patient goes to the doctor and says, listen, I need you to diagnose me and to cure me, but you are not coming anywhere near me. You are not taking any x-rays. You're not doing any blood work, but you need to help me. Can you help me already? Like, there's only so much I could do.
Okay. So they send me the URL.
That will at least tell you whether or not they have my domain set up. That's all. That's what that will tell you. So if they do have my domain set up, the redirect issue has nothing to do with my domain. If they don't have, if it starts off saying something like NA12, NA36, like something like that, instead of like some version of their company name at the very, as a prefix, then I would tell them, well, first thing you need to do is you need to go ahead and set up the my domain, and then they have to update in the CPQ system, however the URL is being generated, that it needs to be updated to have that same prefix of that my domain.
Why don't you show her the trust part, trust at salesforce.com. That's where you can find those domain names.
It's not
Not domain names, but the servers. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so so by the way, if I wanted to go, like here, for my production instance of Salesforce that I use to run my business. So I could just search for it and I could see that my company, for my domain, I'm on server NA90. Which means that if I had not set up, like if I log into my production instance of Salesforce, I won't see NA90 in the prefix of the URL. But prior to setting up my domain, it would have said na.90 dot like lightning, whatever the rest of the URL.
.force.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's possible, if they don't have my domain set up, it's possible that, let's say 3 months ago, they were on NA86. And for various reasons, Salesforce moved them over to NA110. And when they did, by the way, if they did that, Salesforce, I'm sure, sent tons of emails letting them know, but I'm sure the people who got it had absolutely no idea what those emails meant. So they just ignored it. And now they're on different servers, and now their URLs are totally different. And it's possible that the CPQ system is referencing the old URLs, trying to redirect them, and they're getting a redirect error. That's why I think that might be an issue, but I don't know for sure.
Actually, I guess we do have the domain, because it says powerup.mysalesforce.com.
Power of?
Power Up.
Oh, and that's the organization.
No, that's the janky name they decided to label our instance.
Okay, so they have my domain set up, so it's not that. So okay, you can rule that out. So it might be the Chrome issue that we were touching on earlier.
Okay.
At least we ruled that out just now. All right, let's talk about anything else.
David, I have a question.
Sure.
It's about the documents and files. So
documents and files, yes.
So if an user has an access, as far as my knowledge, like if an user has an access to a particular object, then any files or attachments to that object, he will have access to those as well, right?
Depends how files were set up in Salesforce. So it depends on the Salesforce configuration.
Okay.
It's possible, yes.
So if I want to restrict certain sensitive documents to only particular users, but the role is same. Suppose it's an insurance company, so we have a role called AMR, agency management. So I cannot specify at that level, because certain users want to see those documents, but certain users do not want to see those documents. So how currently they in this team they were using is they are using the content version. So as they cannot modify it, they have created a new object, content version security, and then they're syncing both the objects and using that way. But it feels like a little bit complex. They're going a little bit complex way. So is there any way that you can recommend?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you right over here. So what I would recommend is I put in the chat window the URL for the article that I'm sharing on my screen right here. So basically, similar to everything else in Salesforce, the first thing that you need to do is you need to, the default for files should be set to private. Once it's set to private, then users need to select who should be able to access them.
Okay.
So first we need to start, it sounds like based on the scenario that you described, we need to set the default to be most restrictive, and then to manually allow for opening it up to whoever else is appropriate to be seeing it. So that will show you how to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, what else do you guys want to talk about? Let's switch over to this, help you guys.
I have a question.
Yep.
I still don't know how you do it. How do you stay on top of the plethora of information between updates and releases and everything Salesforce? Do you have like a routine? Because it can be a little overwhelming.
It's
All kinds of emails.
incredibly overwhelming.
Yes.
Yes. So I'll tell you, it's a nonstop effort. That's the first thing that I'll say. Let me, in order to show you what I need to show you, I need to log out of all of these demo orgs. I need to log in as myself. So give me a second over here. I'll log in over here. Let's get rid of that. I'm about to show you some resources, so hang on. And what I'm doing is I'm going to be logging into success.salesforce.com.
Success.salesforce.com.
And here we go.
Oh,
So
Trailblazer, yeah.
Come on. All right. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Trailblazer community or success.salesforce.com, come on, internet, keep up with me. So basically what we need to do here is you go under the area for collaboration. I'm going to start with the absolute best one-stop shop that is going to help tremendously, and then I'm going to go from there. There are a lot of resources that I use. So under collaboration, there are groups, and in the groups over here, there is one group called Release Readiness Trailblazers. Everyone with me so far?
I'm writing.
I'm going to give you the shortcut.
Okay.
Cutting and pasting the URL just for this group. So this way you have it.
You're taking my notes.
Okay, so in this group, once you get here, on the left-hand side, these links, this is your lifesaver over here on the left-hand side. The main portion of the screen, this is like the chatter feed where people are putting, it's mostly Salesforce employees that are putting links to webinars, to different documentation, to all kinds of awesome resources, but just the feed itself can be a little bit overwhelming too. So I say just focus over here on the left-hand side. So here, for example, we're looking at the Spring 20 release. And you're going to see tons of resources here. This is going to help you tremendously. So if I look at Release Readiness Live, let's open it in a new tab because I want to go back there. So here's where you're going to see all of the release readiness videos that Salesforce puts out. So there's a playlist of 16 of them right here. I'll tell you that when it comes to, as a user group leader, when it comes to presenting something for the user group, I go to over here, you see where it says Release Overview Deck? Mm-hmm. I think of this as my best friend. And I adore whoever at Salesforce is responsible for this. I adore them. So let's go here, continue, never ask again. So this document, for each release, Salesforce puts together this document. This document, of course, there's no preview because it's so freaking large. Wait, that's impossible that the URL no longer exists. Hang on. Let's go here and download it this way. Come on. Wow, void. Okay. Well, I have it anyway. I'm going to show you. That's weird. It must be like a URL issue. Oh, it just downloaded. Here we go. It's coming now. So this document, I'm going to pull up a preview to show you what it looks like. Oh, of course, Google Drive won't let me do that either. This is a PowerPoint. So with each release, Salesforce employees put together this PowerPoint. This PowerPoint can easily be 100 to 200 slides long, easily. This PowerPoint is absolutely wonderful for any Salesforce admin, if you're working even internally within an organization, not only to get yourself up to speed on all of the highlights of the new release. It does not cover every single feature in the new release. It covers the highlights. What it also does is it will allow you to easily communicate to your users about the new features in the most recent release. So I'm just waiting for the download to finish over here. And then once it does, I'm going to open it. I'm going to share it on my screen so you guys can actually see what it looks like. And then I'm going to move over to some other wonderful resources. Come on. All right, so now let me open it up. And then I'm going to switch the share on my screen. PowerPoint is still thinking on me. Okay, so now I can update the share. So now we're looking at this PowerPoint. And you can see over here that this PowerPoint consists of 193 slides. So I use this as a user group leader. I start off with this and I just take out whatever I think is either irrelevant. I mean, there's no way I would have time as a user group leader. It would take many, many hours of a user group event for me to go through some of these highlights. So what I do is I simply take out those things that I think my user group attendees are not as interested in, leaving only those. I try to trim it down to like 60 slides or 40 slides. Excuse me, just to show those, just a couple of different highlights. This is a fantastic way of just focusing on those things that are most important. We're good so far?
Yes.
All right. Besides this, what I do is I'm going to, let's go back to the browser. Which browser window am I? This one. Go to YouTube and look for Salesforce releases and subscribe to this channel. The only reason why you see it looks like I'm not subscribed is because I'm logged in under my company account, not my personal account. But under this channel for Salesforce, so you just go to YouTube, you search for Salesforce releases. You're going to land on this channel. I'll give you the URL for this as well. I'll put it in the chat. And then over here, you look under playlists, and you're going to see a playlist for the most recent release. So over here, you see it says Salesforce Spring 20. And when I get to this, I can see that it has 50 videos here. It's still a ton of content to go through. This is a lot. But in the end, there's a lot that's included in each release. Now, if you're working with a nonprofit, none of this includes any of the nonprofit new features. So there's a whole separate thread and resources that you need to look for to find the latest releases on for the nonprofits. And basically those will be in the Power of Us Hub, and those would be in the Salesforce channel for nonprofits, salesforce.org. For the Nonprofit Success Pack, you're going to see a similar thread of webinars and YouTube videos, all focused on those new features for the nonprofits. So it's a lot, but that's how I keep up to date.
But you notice on the time on all these, they're not really, a lot of them are not long, or is that, hopefully that's minutes and seconds.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. Yeah,
So
they're brief.
You can get a few, if you don't have a lot of time, you can get a few of them in between breaks and doing everything else.
I'll tell you one of the things I do, one of the ways that I try to keep up with, like the videos that we saw earlier, the recordings of webinars as well as these, I save it. I'm a huge fan of YouTube. Save it to a watch later playlist. And then when I'm on the elliptical machine, I am a total geek. This is what I'm watching. Yeah.
Yep.
And then I'm trying to scramble and take notes, like of things that I want to go back to, or certain features that I think certain clients would really benefit from. So I have a notepad and a pen with me too. Like, yeah, it's a little insane.
Another question, David.
Yeah.
Nonprofits, do they get access to accelerators?
That is a great question. I honestly don't know.
The reason I ask is because when you said webinar, it jogged my memory. I just did one about getting started with governance. And it was really helpful. And it like broke it down into plain English and really kind of went more in depth than what I've seen previously. But it was an accelerator, and I was going to suggest it to Cassie. Was it Cassie? But I
don't know. Yeah, it's a great question. What I'll say is there are lots of webinars, A, webinars, and B, there's a whole thread of record. There's a whole channel, I should say. I can't type anymore. Salesforce.org.
Here's an MVP, David. I have the deck if anyone's interested.
Ooh, that's very cool.
I just think it would be really helpful because it talks about the change the change management and getting your stakeholders and.
Yep. So you can see here, this is the channel for Salesforce.org. And there's a ton of videos here, both like just conceptually and like interviewing, showing best practices from other organizations that are using it, as well as like directly on the screen and hands-on. And you'll see they're quite substantive. Most of these are like an hour long. Like these are recordings of webinars. And as you can see over here, just from the timeline, they're updated quite often. So there's definitely a ton of material to go through.
Can you add that URL as well, please?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep, my pleasure.
I know we got only like 10 minutes left. Can we touch on dashboards?
Yes. What do you want to know about dashboards?
Is it possible to like give each individual team their own dashboard? Like it'd be like an operations team dashboard or the outreach team dashboard, the volunteer dashboard.
So the answer is yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, you can. I don't think there's any limit on how many dashboards an organization can have.
Okay, so is there a good place to learn how to build dashboards? Good place to, the best place to figure out how to make them work for me?
So what I'll tell you is,
it's not like we have a whole lot of money flowing through Salesforce right now. It's more outreach and volunteer classes and events.
Yeah. So this is one area where there's not. This is one area that I think is very painful for a lot of people. And there's not enough resources out there that really resonates with people to learn reports and dashboards. And the reason why you saw me sort of like laughing on it is because, not making fun whatsoever, because this is something that I've recently sort of realized myself. And keep in mind, I've been living and breathing Salesforce stuff and Salesforce configuration and training for the past over 12 years. And it's very recently that I'm like, you know, reports, dashboards, and list views are things that are so easy, and any end user should be able to do them. And people struggle with it all the time.
Yeah.
And there isn't, I mean, yes, there are resources like I'm showing you right here. They're completely free for anyone to learn. By the way, I just cut and pasted the URL for this. I'm going to also put the Trailhead Salesforce reports. And so I just recently started creating a series of training on this particular topic. Yes, I do charge for it. It's a 3-hour training class. But at the same time, by all means, there's free materials that are out here. To whatever extent you can use it, by all means, go ahead and use it. And a lot of it is trial and error. Like, it's not only watching, you have to actually play around and do things. And then there's the best practices to learn. But this is a very common thing that people struggle with.
I'm not alone. Okay.
You're not alone.
I thought it was just me having trying to get reports and dashboards figured out.
Yeah.
It can't be this hard.
Yeah, no, and it should not be hard. But a lot of people struggle with it.
I definitely recommend hitting that best practices in terms of setup, so you don't have to go back and clean up a mess like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Right.
So as a general rule, what I'll say when it comes to reports and dashboards, it is always best to use filters where the filters will be dynamically applied. So, and this holds true for list views as well. Things like my records, my leads, my opportunities, my activities, or my and my teams, like for the people who are managers and have people that are working directly for them. So mine my team's opportunities, mine my team's cases, or my cases. So just by doing that by itself, basically you're creating sort of standardized cookie cutter reports and dashboards that everyone can access, and everyone will only see those records that are most appropriate for them just by using those kinds of filters. And this way, you as the admin should not be busy creating 100 different versions for 100 different people. Like, no, no, you didn't do that. So, so that's my recommendation, like in broad strokes, to leverage those kinds of that type of structure for building your reports and dashboards. That also requires having accurate data, that people who should be represented as the case owner, the contact owner, the opportunity owner are really represented accurately, because the reports are simply going to show the data that's actually in there. You know, garbage data goes in, garbage data comes out.
Okay. So thank you.
Yeah. James posted in the chat a really good recommendation as far as there's a super badge in Trailhead that deals with dashboards. And
super badge,
if you work through that, it's going to take you through a bunch of different modules to lead up to being able to work through the super badge. If you were to like just focus on that for a while and go through that, you'll get really good exposure to a lot of best practice information.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep. So what I will say on this topic, well, of course, I logged out of that demo org of mine. So let me show you this. So a neat trick that I recently uncovered. So when it comes to reports and dashboards, very often the need that comes up is articulated in the following way. Aside from the standard, like, how do I build reports? How do I build dashboards? But if I, as the manager, I have 5 people reporting into me, and once a week, once a month, whatever it is, I'm sitting down with each of my 5 team members, I want to see reports that show, I want to have a visualization, like one landing page that shows all of, let's say, the activities that they've created, or the leads that they've converted, the opportunities that they've created, or they've closed within a specific time frame. And then when one person walks out of my office and the next person walks in, I just want to flip and like then see the same kind of data, but now reflected for that new team member that just walked into my room. So that is a very, very common need. Now, you can certainly have reports as well as dashboards that are filtered based on the user that we want to focus on. However, as new people join the team and leave the team, that becomes a maintenance nightmare. And nobody wants to deal with that.
So your org has a revolving door.
Absolutely. So, and every org, regardless how large or how small the company is, every org struggles with this. So I've recently uncovered a really, really neat trick in order to do this. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with the standard user, I'll call it splash screen in Salesforce. When you go ahead and look for any user in Salesforce, so I'm going to here look for my fictional user of Michael Franco. When you go to that user, usually what you see is like a chatter feed, and you don't see any information that's of value whatsoever as the admin. If you land on the screen, you're like, damn, that's not the screen I wanted. I wanted to go here, user detail, to go to this screen to actually see what role and profile they have, like all that kind of, or log in as them. So that's usually as an admin, and actually even as end users, there is minimal use for that splash screen I was on a moment ago. But I've recently uncovered a way of actually, let's go back in the browser, I think it moved me back. I've uncovered a trick to completely repurpose this screen in order to show metrics like these. So watch this, what was that?
Yeah, that'd be great. Like so many classes a month, or, you know?
Right. Yeah. And this way, if I switch over to my other employee of, let's say, Susan, I'm going to be looking, it's going to show the exact same report summarized, but the underlying data is now filtered for Susan. Okay. So basically the way this is done is by having underlying reports that show, that basically say, show me all of the leads for this user. And actually, I take it back. Let me reword that. The underlying report actually doesn't have any filter. The report itself was built on the report type of user and leads, where they are represented as the lead owner, with no filters on it whatsoever. But then I go ahead into the page layout for the user, and let's go into your edit page. And then all I have to do is grab the report chart and bring it onto the page layout and select the appropriate report. And then all I have to do is select over here on the right-hand side. You see where it says filter by? Filter by, and then you select user ID.
Okay.
And by doing that for each one of these underlying reports, it's automatically going to filter the report just for each of those users that we're looking at in Salesforce.
Okay.
So it makes it completely dynamic.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Where's the next one?
Yeah, so I see Chrissy posted something. Hang on, let me catch up with it. Oh, dark mode on Chrome. Yes. I have not had a chance to play around with that, but yeah, that is a very neat feature. All right, in the 2 minutes that we have left, anyone want to bring up any other topics?
When are we having another one?
Yeah. I'm on it. Well, we have another one.
Okay, I will look at my calendar. I'm going to be traveling quite a bit. Like, my calendar is a little bit crazy the next couple of weeks, but I am going to schedule another one. I promise I will let all of you know when the next one is. So don't worry about that. You'll be in the know.
Okay, cool.
And by the way, you see I called it in terms of the number of participants.
Yep.
And from my perspective, I'm like, it would be totally okay if we had 100 people join, but I had like 120 people RSVP for this event. And the number has been hovering, at least every time I checked on it, it's been hovering near 20, which actually, in my mind, makes it small enough that we can interact and have meaningful conversation as opposed to having a lot of background noise.
Yep. Yep.
Anyway.
No, I appreciated this very much. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I'm glad I got the email.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Okay.
Have a great night.
Hey, can we get a recording of this?
Yes, actually, yes, I will share the recording.
All right, thank you.
All right.
And I would save that list.
Yes, I will be reusing this list. Actually, I plan on building on it. I just started typing it like at the top of the hour when we first started. So yes, I'm gonna add to it. So
okay.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Yeah.
Bye. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Yep.